Well, it happened. For the first time in my 10 years plus of YouTubing, I got something wrong. This is a streak being shattered with an emotional devastation akin to The Undertaker losing at WrestleMania. I have no doubt that a lot of people will lose faith in me, but I know that many more will rally around me. What am I talking about? Well, friends, I watched The Simpsons season 37, and shit was bad. Okay, so previously I did a video called The Simpsons is Good Again. I really like this video. I think it's a good video. People got really mad at me about it, especially on Twitter, where the overwhelming consensus was 1, no it didn't, and 2, it's not that deep, bro. As always, I did not care. My stance was unwavering. I stood by and stand by every single part of that video. But the video ended on this note where it was kind of like, okay, I think what's happening here with The Simpsons is that it's starting to become something else. And the reason I said that is because in season 35, there's some episodes that felt really like strange and different and weird and seemed to be implying that the creators knew that like there is a legacy to The Simpsons that kind of needs to be let go in order for the series to move forward. You had episodes like Marge and Homer getting stuck in the wilderness, and this fucking insane scene where they're attacked by, I think, a wolverine, and it's so much more visceral and frightening than anything you might have expected from a Simpsons episode, and like just really interesting, weird, and good shit. Now, don't get me wrong, there were also bad episodes in that season, but for the most part, I was like, okay, there is something here. Is it as good as classic Simpsons? Not even close. Is it, like, watchable on its own merits? Yeah, I think there is. And so, then life happened for about 2 years. I did not watch Simpsons season 36, and I recently watched 37 due to it being my own recommendation on Versus Wolves. And let me tell you, that shit fucking backfired. This is the most disappointed I have been since I went downstairs on my birthday and saw a large square box, which I assumed was an Xbox 360, only to shortly later discover that it was in fact a heated mattress warmer. Thanks for that, man. When I talk about any piece of media, I always think it's important to have a certain degree of empathy for the media and the people who made it. I always like to be like, okay, what in this can I find to enjoy? I don't like just tearing stuff down. I don't like just shitting on stuff for the sake of shitting on stuff, because I feel like that has always happened way too much on YouTube and is certainly happening right now. But that said, fuck, guys, there was so little that I enjoyed about Simpsons season 37. I remember one joke, and it's when the kids are going to the bathroom, and Ralph says, "Say hi to Mirror, Ralph." That, I thought, that got a chuckle out of me. That got a good laugh. Besides that, though, I was treated to some of the most tepid Simpsons humor I have seen, as well as just some real confoundingly nothing episodes. And so, like, what do I mean by that? Well, to me, when you talk about writing, and especially to, like, you know, like a general audience who might not be familiar with writing, the main, like, quantity of writing is, like, time, the main ingredient. That's what matters. It's not your first draft that counts. It's, like, your 5th or 6th or 10th or whatever. Like, in videos or like in the Eyepatch Wolves comic, I have frequently like written jokes or, you know, whatever, and it goes into the first draft and I kind of read it back and I'm like, this isn't really like that funny, or it doesn't really work. And over the course of like 5 or 6 drafts, I'll be like, okay, let's change it. What if we change the line to this? What if we do this? What if we, you know, change the editing to this? And eventually then you kind of like shave away everything that doesn't work about the joke, and you're just left with something that at least I think is funny. And I feel like there's so much about this season of The Simpsons that just feels like the writers had absolutely no time at all working on it. And the reason I would say that, as opposed to like the writers are untalented or whatever, is because I really believe even in this day and age, you have to have done something to get to the point where you are writing on The Simpsons. No matter what the current like reputation of the show is, no matter what its current quality, That must be an insanely competitive position to get to. And I felt like so many of these episodes, it just felt like they went with the first joke they got because maybe there wasn't time to do anything else. A great example of this is Marge on the menopause. There's an episode that flashes forward like 5 years in time, and it's Marge dealing with like she's either on the menopause or scared that she's about to go through it. And so it's like, okay, this is about getting older. This is about being able to not do what you used to do, which is like a fear everyone has. There's a lot of like universal stuff in there. And when you apply that to a character like Marge Simpson, who has been eternally frozen in this like iceberg of TV foreverness, yeah, there's some kind of interesting things that you can kind of talk about there and that you can kind of do. And so it's like, okay, what are we gonna do here? And immediately it's like, okay, what's like a cheap joke? Like, think of a cheap joke about a woman getting older. What would her reaction be? And one of the first things you'll probably land on is like, oh, what if she got a bunch of Botox? Immediately, like, that's what the episode does. There's all these just jokes about all the women of Springfield getting Botox because they don't want to get older, and frozen faces and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, it feels lazy. Like, it just feels like lazy comedy, and like the jokes themselves aren't really any better. Like, the execution isn't great, and it's just like, yeah, that's what happens sometimes when people get older, I guess. It's really nothing, and I feel like the episode ends and there's just no real attempt to kind of like meditate on what this would mean from this character and derive sincere comedy from her conflict within that, you know? And like, I wish I could say that was one of the worst episodes, but the sad fact of the matter for me, it was actually one of the better episodes in the entire thing. And like, there's some, and they're just fucking nonsense. There's one with Superintendent Chalmers, who has always been one of my favorite Simpsons characters ever, and he goes to work at the nuclear power plant after being fired from the school, where he discovers a bunch of giant snails and then starts to make skincare products out of them, but then the skincare products aren't good, and then he loses that job, and it's just like, it's just kind of fucking nothing, you know? Like, there's just no heart to it. There's no comedy. There's no, I feel like, earnest desire to explore these characters and like pull the jokes out of them, you know? But I think one of like the flattest episodes of the whole season is the K-pop episode. Obviously, K-pop is a huge thing right now. I have a lot of friends who are like into K-pop. I spent a portion of last Saturday evening being shown a bunch of very beautiful men very slowly making their way through their skin routine, and honestly, it was kind of fascinating. But this episode is basically like the Simpsons go to a K-pop concert, and then it turns into like that film Trap, a god awful movie, and then it's over, and there's no real meditation on anything. They also do the kind of classic New Simpsons thing where they take a side character and then like try and expand them. One of them is about Bumblebee Man, and that episode's like, it's okay, it's fine. It's actually kind of like interesting how they sort of, I guess, add some dimensionality to Bumblebee Man, but I think I really am saying that in context with the rest of the season, which I just thought was unbelievably fucking weak. And so this episode stood out as like, yeah, that was okay. Homer kind of becomes a Bumblebee Man, you know, it's whatever. There's another episode where Bart becomes an assistant to Dr. Frink, and Dr. Frink is another like great character, and I think has the potential to have interesting stuff done with him. But in this entire episode is like, it's about all these like, you know, billionaires and all trying to invent this new thing and trying to find a way to live forever. But it's really about this idea of Dr. Frink trying to convince Bart that he's smart. I kind of hated this, not only because there was a early episode about Bart being enrolled in a gifted class and it being made very apparent that he is not smart, but it's this kind of thing, when you push the character that far, they stop being that character. Bart is not smart. He's clever, he's witty, he's kind of street smart, he is not bookish, and he cannot like remember things, you know? And for a lot of people, that's a legit thing, where it's like you're intelligent in a bunch of ways that traditional academia just like misses completely. And I think Bart is that. He is kind of a genius, but not in the traditional sense. In the traditional sense, he comes across as like quite stupid. And I think that frustration is a part of his character. And here you kind of just all compress that into sort of nothing. But the worst episode of this entire season was the manosphere episode. And again, this was another classic New Simpsons thing. Take current headline, basically say nothing with it, you know? And what happens here is that Bart and Homer go to like a man camp and learn to be like real men or whatever the fuck. The thing I really hated about this episode wasn't anything particularly it said about like masculinity or being a man or just whatever. It's that it said absolutely fucking nothing. Like, even the camp itself, half the time the camp counselor, who's some fucking guest star who I have no idea who they were. I didn't know who anyone was, but I am really old, so that's not the fault of The Simpsons. Half the time he's like, you need to get in touch with your emotions, and then the other half of the time he's real, like, manosphere, don't let anything beat you. To the point that it's like, it's absolutely just nothing. And I feel like if you sat me like right down to like a red pill manosphere dude and we both watched this episode, we would both come out of it being like, I don't know what that was. We wouldn't even be able to disagree on it because there's just nothing there. And then it's like, well, then why the fuck would you cover that in the first place? So yeah, it was just profoundly disappointing, you know? And like, I know that the writers of The Simpsons probably do not give a shit what I think, but I think if I was to like give some advice here, it's like, stop with like the pulling shit from the headlines and go back to finding actual stories about these characters that are interesting. You know, because you have Springfield, you have this entire city of people, and there has to be stuff that you can do. And I get that part of it is that this has been like, you know, it's 37 seasons now, it's so many episodes, it's so difficult to think up something that hasn't been done, but it has to be better than this. Like, I would love The Simpsons to do another decent season, and I'm not just like fucking end it or whatever, because at this point I just think the show is gonna go until it's done. But like, goddamn, like, comedy and storytelling is what this show should be about, not like just parodying the most recent fucking thing. Oh, it's so sad. And I actually went back and I rated every episode of this, and I calculated the rating because I had done that with the previous Simpsons season 34 and Simpsons season 35. And it was really depressing when I looked at the rating, because Simpsons season 34, I rated that a 6.1, I believe, out of 10. And it was like, not great, but pretty shitty, honestly. Season 35, I thought was a good degree better. And that was like just about a 7. Just about a 7 out of 10. Just about the point where, like, if you ask me, should I check out some of Simpsons season 35? I'm like going, yeah, I guess, you know, it's some pretty good episodes in there. You can watch my video on it if you want to know which. But Serious Flanders, that's not from that season, that's from a different season. That episode fucking rules. That episode to me is the, no, you can actually do Modern Simpsons in a way that's great and compelling. And it sucks that it's fallen back into what I feel like were so many of the traps that it started to climb out of. So yeah, I don't know. I rated this season a 4.5. The highest scoring episode was a 6. The lowest scoring, the Manosphere episode, was a 2. And I'm disappointed. I'm really, really disappointed, because I really wanted better for The Simpsons than this. So yeah, I was wrong. See, I do occasionally acknowledge when I'm wrong, but I'm not going to do it for anything else. Anyway, till next time.